In today's show, we discuss, should all sports now be competed as gender neutral?
And now, the TNT Talk Show, daring to go where other podcasts fear to tread.
Hello, I'm Tony Fasulo, and I share the stage with my esteemed friend and colleague, Tayo Boyer. Tayo, hello, my friend, once again. I hope you are keeping safe and well.
Yeah, what the hell, Tony? What the hell?
Oh dear, I don't know whether to actually ask you to say hi to our audience because you're always doom and gloom. Come on, say something nice to them.
Oh, my dead body, Tony.
I'm not going to say any more on that. I'm going to say hello to our audience. Hello, audience. Another shenanigans show here for you.
Oh, God.
But anyway, in today's show, we actually discuss, should all sports now be competed as gender neutral? It's 2022 after all. Taya, you came up with this particular subject. So what's your initial feelings about it?
I think it's time. I think it's time that we stopped worrying so much about who's a female, who's a trans, who's a man. Let's just simplify everything, and let's just have these one single leagues where it's just every man, every woman, every trans, every whatever it is, for him, her, it, for themselves. That just simplifies everything. It's a level playing field. Come in, drug-free, run, jump, swim, throw, ride horses, whatever you do. And that's it. May the best person win. And how can you say fairer than that?
Well, in all fairness, I suppose it does make logical sense when you say it like that, because it takes away the gender issue, blah blah blah. However, aren't you penalizing girls in a way? Because if you think about it, if you're mixing everybody together, then on those sports where strength may have a bearing, then all the records that women have achieved up to now will be null and void, because it's going to be very, very difficult for girls and women in particular to compete with testosterone equivalent gender. Do you see what I mean? And then so they'll never be able to hit the dizzy heights of medals or accolades if you bandy everybody together.
Well, I find that hard to believe, given what has transpired over the past 50 years or whatever it is. All we've heard is a constant parade of claims and assertions and statements and books and magazines and films and radio and this and that, where women say that they can do anything a man can do, and in heels, and do it backwards and do it better. So I think we got to stop being patriarchal about this, because they always blame the patriarchy, and I think they've got a point. We tell them what they can and can't do. No, we need to take them at their word now. They say they can compete, so fine, compete. Are we really protecting women, or is it just that namby-pamby, shallow men are protecting their own egos?
I'm still not convinced. I still believe there should be categories, and there have to be multiple categories. So you're not disadvantaging certain people. I mean, come on, let's go down to at the school age, for instance. There's a difference in strength between the boys and the girls growing up. And if we were all putting them all together, unless you're only saying that this only happens when they reach adulthood, I don't know.
Mhm.
But if they were to start early doors where you just have one competition, then in some competitions it will be unfair, because there will be the advantage that men will have physically. I mean, obviously there's going to be sports where that doesn't apply. I mean, you could amalgamate a number of sports in actual fact which have no bearing on strength. You know, pool, snooker, darts, that's just a couple, horse riding, I don't know, there's multiple sports where the strength is not necessarily the issue that determines who could win it. So yes, there could be examples where we could amalgamate it, but then if you're going to do it for some, then you can't do it for all. It doesn't make sense. It makes more sense to then not go down that route and just split them up into categories, but have more of them.
I think that's just horrifically sexist. I think in the 21st century, this far into it, in the third decade of the 21st century, I think we just need to grasp the bull, or possibly the cow, by the horns, and say, yeah, I think over a period of time, the women will, and if they do start off disadvantaged, which I don't think they will, because they say they won't, this is their claim, then over a period of time, they will, if you like, man up. And that competition in itself will make them stronger and better. So Serena Williams says that she won't be able to compete against men at the top of their game. But I think that's possibly because all her life she was playing against other women. And if she had had the opportunity from when she was growing up of competing against men, then possibly she would have grown even stronger and even faster and more able. But the lack of that competition is what is, in my opinion, which has disadvantaged her. So once we say we should let them all compete on a level playing field, I think that over a period of time, as women themselves claim, this is what feminists tell us, they themselves say that they will outcompete men. And why should we not believe them? I mean, it's true. Oh, by the way, I think you are wrong. I think before puberty, there is no statistical difference in strength and speed between boys and girls. I think it is the puberty that may have an impact. And historically, we have made the mistake of accepting that bifurcation of the sexes, which takes place in terms of strength and speed and things like this. That bifurcation, that separation we see, we've taken that as meaning that they should be separated. And this is, in my opinion, a historical mistake that we've made, the human race has made. And we should not continue down that route. There's the feminist agenda of getting rid of genders is one that I think needs airing properly, and we should start to respect it.
I mean, it does make sense, to be fair. Let's be fair with it. Yes, it does make sense. But what about, rather than having all the existing categories removed, why don't they just add a new one to the mix? So you've got your existing female categories, your existing male categories, and any other in between. But then you have one new category, which is everybody. So you could have a medal, for a women only category of that particular sport, a men only category of that particular sport, and then you've got a combined category for that particular sport. So that way you are giving people the opportunity to compete in the combined one to see how they fare. Now, obviously, there's going to be some sports that will be quite difficult. I mean, if we're talking about boxing, for instance, how would that pan out? I mean, because obviously that's based on strength, stamina, speed, etc. And by and large, it is men who have biologically more of that. So that could be a challenge. But if you still had the separate categories, and then you introduce this new one, which was a combined category, then it gives people the freedom of choice to compete in this category if they wanted to. That way they could really, they could be, you know, they could be a master in their individual category and be the champion. But if they really wanted to put their skills against everybody, then you do this combined one as well and see how you fare there.
I think the problem with that is that you are, I mean, some people will be disincentivized from competing in the mixed category because they'll just think, why should I bother? And they'll just stay in their own category, especially if they think it'll give them a better chance of winning. So you do have to grasp the bull by the horns, as I've said, and just collapse all categories into just one, this one single league. And when you're speaking about boxing, now the idea of a woman climbing to the ring with Mike Tyson at the peak of his abilities might seem at first suicidal. I mean, I've got this mental image of her brains leaking out of her ears when she gets hit.
Ridiculous.
But that's because of our patriarchal, sexist outlook. And we have to overcome it. We have to let women climb into the ring and show us what they've got because they themselves say that they can do it. And why are we the ones putting up a barrier? If women don't want to climb into the ring with Mike Tyson, no one's going to force them to climb into the ring with Mike Tyson. But there may be women out there, surprisingly strong, surprisingly fast, surprisingly able, who could shock us all and make us understand and believe once and for all that the feminists have been right all this time. But the way you're going about it, Tony, is that you're doing this patriarchal thing of saying you believe in women's equality and then straight away turning around and saying, well, no, you can't do this. I think that's wrong.
Do it. I'm not saying you can't do it, but it's maybe it's the father in me. It's like protecting.
Yeah, well, nobody asks for your protection. Just like the same way that when you open a door for a woman nowadays, you're as likely, in fact, probably more likely to be insulted than to be thanked. And it's time for us to just let women open their own doors. And it's time for us to let women climb into the ring with Mike Tyson if that's what they want to do. I come back to the point again that nobody's forcing them to do it. And if you don't just climb into the ring and fight Mike Tyson, you must have beaten up other men on your way up to win the right to fight him. True?
Yes, of course.
Oh, there you are. So she's, wherever this woman is, she's already beaten up, some sizable foe, some decent men in the ring, and then she gets a chance at being world champion, first female world champion in boxing ever. So why not? What's the problem?
It's okay. How would it work across team sports? Say, for instance, you are applying this to, say, football.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Then you could have, there's no issue with gender, etc.
Mm-hmm.
But the managers would look for the best person for the position. Wouldn't they then bias their decisions because they ultimately want to win? Wouldn't they bias their decisions as to who was the most competitive in the training part, when they do training and testing, and wouldn't they all be all men anyway?
No, well, that's a very, very, very sexist thing to say. I think that's a terrible thing of you to say, Tony. I think that the women would surprise you because let's call a spade a spade. They've told us that they can do it. And why are we stopping them from doing it? there will be some women who will rise to the top. And I think over a period of time, as the years and decades roll by, more and more and more women will, just by the mere fact that they have to compete against men from an early age and keep on competing, I think there'll be more and more women until you have teams which we might even one day find out are mostly women, because they have achieved supremacy that they tell us that they have. I mean, I'm not the one putting words in the mouths of women, by the way. I'm going by what women say that they want themselves. This is what the feminists tell us. And this is what we should be fighting for, a fair and equal and equitable society. Why do we have distinctions? If we can do this in sports, it will bleed into other areas of our lives, and we won't stop worrying about, the glass ceiling in corporations, and it's all men at the top and things like this, because we'll be so used to seeing men and women competing on an equal level playing field. It will bleed into society, and we will finally get over this burden that we've carried since forever, frankly.
Okay. I mean, it would be nice to actually, obviously you and I are both male, it would be nice to have got a female perspective on this, on whether they believed that
Well,
this
I
is
represent their
something.
position. I mean, I represent the position of the feminists in this thing, because I've been hearing it for so long. Not only have I been hearing it, I've watched it played out in most recent films. At one time, it would have been scandalous to see a 60 kg girl beat up a 180, sorry, that's ridiculous, 120, 130 kg hulking man. But now when we watch films like the latest Charlie's Angels, like this film with Jessica Chastain, forgotten what it's called. When we watch films like the Terminator Dark Fate, it's clear that the thinking is all that's holding women back is the patriarchy. We are not letting women just do what they need to do. We're putting blocks in their way, which you just said is a fatherly thing. But that's kind of insulting to women nowadays. Very insulting, actually. So
I
we've
would
got to
love
stop
to
that.
actually get a real a census, really, on the amount of women who are tuning into our show or listening on podcasts. I'd love to hear their feedback on what they think to this. Is it a sizable number that would be in favor of this or not? Because I know you say you're representing a lot of feminists in this idea, and in principle it actually makes sense, because it's fair, isn't it? You've got everybody together. It makes sense. But in reality, what would a number of women think of this? Would they
Well, are you saying
agree?
they can't?
I've not said they can't,
No, I'm
because I'm a
asking you
man. I
now.
can't say
No, I'm
whether they
asking,
can or can't.
are you
It's
saying
for
that
them
women
to
can't
say.
compete?
I didn't
What,
say that
what
either.
is that fatherly? Why did you say that you had a fatherly feeling and of protection again? What are you afraid of?
Well, I'm afraid for women's safety in some of the more physical sports, because I wouldn't want to send my daughter to go and fight a guy in a ring, despite her strengths and her abilities, because of the father in me. I would say, that's I don't want to protect her, because in my eyes it's not a fair fight. So yes, in all logical sense, it makes sense for women to compete equally with men in everything, and that should be the case. But in some sports where strength is the de facto element, then it's skewed too heavily one way or the other, resulting in somebody being potentially injured and even killed. And I wouldn't want that on anybody.
Well, I'm sorry. I just feel that that's just very patronizing. and it just really makes women just look, you're just looking down on women and their incredible capabilities. They carry children for babies, fetuses, whatever, for 9 months. They go through the horror of supposedly, because I have never experienced it, so I'm told that it's horrifically painful childbirth, and then they carry on. Let me ask you this question: which do you think is okay? So this doesn't exactly make my point, but it does help focus our minds on how each gender sees pain. I'm going to try to prove that women can take pain better than men. Okay?
Oh, okay.
Now, which is more painful, do you think? Is it childbirth or
I can't comment on childbirth, but go on.
or getting kicked in the nuts? Try to keep a straight face.
Sure. I mean, just saying that, obviously I've experienced the latter, and it is incredibly, incredibly painful. But I have heard that obviously I cannot compare, and neither can any woman. However, a woman goes through childbirth multiple times. A man doesn't want to have a second go at.
There you go.
Kicked.
You see,
but
when a man, he's got to a man and say, "Do you mind if I kick you in the balls again?" He's going to tell you no. But a woman, when she wants to have a child again, but what that actually, you see, so some men take it and say that means that getting kicked in the balls is more painful. Actually, what it shows is that women can tolerate pain better than men.
Well, there is a comparison actually, and that's with kidney stones. Now, obviously, men and women can have kidney stones, and that's incredibly painful. And I have to put my hand up. I've had kidney stones, and that is worse. I have to categorically say that's worse than being kicked in the nether regions.
Wow.
And I never realized that was even possible. But trust me, it is. So I've had the two, and women have often said that a kidney stone is comparable with childbirth. So in that case, I've had both kidney stone and being kicked in the nether regions. And if I had to compare the two, then yeah, the kidney stone was worse.
Thereby proving my point. So I don't think we don't need to be overprotective. I'm not even sure it's even our right to be overprotective, Tony. I'm not even sure it's our right. Well, I'm not sure we have the right to try to protect women, because I think women can protect themselves and they don't need us.
Okay, but is that true? Because if a father and a daughter, wouldn't you want to be protecting of your children, regardless, okay, male or female kids? There's a protection element. A mother wants to protect her young too. So
but a mother wants to protect her son. I mean, we're not saying that's a special relationship there.
Right, that's a familiar, and a daughter relationship not as equally special?
No, I'm saying that it's a familial relationship. That's why you want to protect your offspring. That's a family kind of thing. But as a societal thing, do we have the right? I'm not even sure. You don't have the right to tell your adult daughter what to do and what not to do. You can give her advice as a father, but that's all you can do. And I'm saying that as a society, we can't stop women from doing things. I mean, we're doing that now, but we shouldn't. We should just let everyone compete as they want to, because you go into the sport and you achieve what your talent lets you achieve, and you put yourself in danger to the extent that you feel is sensible. So it's up to everyone, not just women, even some guy who has had a few street fights but thinks he can take on Mike Tyson. It might be inadvisable for him to get into the ring, not just women.
Yeah.
Well, so why are you being so over? Again, it comes back to this overly protective thing.
If in that case, then, I understand the logic. In that, should we then increase the table in terms of at the moment, most sports you've got first, second, third. Now, where did that come from? Why don't we go down to 10? Why does it have to stop at 3? Do you see what I mean? Why can't
I don't know why it stops at 3. It's a good question. I've never asked myself why 3.
Yeah, it seems rather strange. Why do we stop at 3? You know, gold, silver, and bronze. Why can't you go down to 5 or go down to 10? So
Okay, I don't know. But who won gold? Who beat him? Second. Ah. And who did that second beat? Third.
yeah.
Okay. All right, let's go and get the fish and chips now. You don't have time. You don't have time or interest to ask who came fourth. You don't really care.
No, but you see, if you have got a big contingency of people in one category now, whereas previously you had several, you've now got one. So you've got this one complete gender neutral group for every sport. Then that would make more sense to extend the list from the 3, because you'd want to put it proportional to the amount of people or that are competing, would you not?
Yeah. Well, so, you might want to do that, but let's not forget that I believe there are 1,000 and something professional male tennis players, and it's still only first past the post.
Yes.
So in tennis, anyway, as a sport.
No, yeah, I agree.
You know, there's the winner and then the runner-up. Nobody starts talking about the, third runner-up and the
fourth. No, they don't. They don't. But the thing is, that they still get prize money all the way down there.
Yeah, they do.
So there's still prize money depending on how high you get. And in fact, I think in some competitions in tennis, in fact, the big ones, they pay, even if you finish 32nd.
Yes, a parent's fee.
Yeah, you get something, so you're getting paid even at that level. So, but you're right, you don't get as much recognition. But
you're not going to get people. If Serena Williams was right, I don't think we should expect to see an immediate participation of women in, let's say, tennis. Let's talk about tennis, because she has said this is. I'm going back now to this furore over comments that John McEnroe made. A few years ago, he was being interviewed, Breakfast TV in America, and the 2 female, I think it was 2 female and 1 male presenter. Someone said that Serena Williams was the best tennis player in the world, and John McEnroe said no, she's the best female player in the world. And the woman got upset and offended. She said, "What do you mean by that?" I said, "Well, she is the best female player probably that we've ever seen, but she's only a female player. She's not going to be able to do anything on the men's circuit." And they were like, "What are you talking about? She could hold her own." And John McEnroe said, "Are you serious?" Remember how he used to say, "Are you serious?"
Yeah.
He was like, "Are you serious?" And he looked at the woman like she was bonkers. And, "Well, why are you looking at me like that?" So, "What are you talking about? She's just a female player. She can't hold her own against anyone in the top whatever of tennis." And that started a big controversy over this. And that's why I told you earlier, I said, this is why Serena Williams herself, when she was asked about McEnroe's comments, said, "Well, he's right. I'd probably be a 1,000th if both leagues were..." Yes, because it was McEnroe who said, "Well, let's collapse the leagues."
Oh, he actually suggested it.
Yes, he actually suggested it. So, well, maybe you're right. Let's just collapse the leagues. Now, ask the female tennis players if they want that. And then when Serena Williams was responding to us, she was like, "No, we don't want that because I'd never win anything." And I'm saying that is why I dispute and disagree with your idea of having male, female, and a third. Because until women have to compete on a level playing field, they will always take that option. Who wouldn't? It's just common sense. It's not that they're running away. It's just, I'm not accusing them of running away from a fight. What I'm saying is, they're not stupid. I don't see why I'd have to play a hard game of tennis against someone like Nadal if I can play a game of tennis against, I don't know,
the women tennis players. Yeah. Maria Sharapova, for instance, although I don't know if she's still playing. But
I think she stopped playing like 20 years ago.
Oh, okay.
That's one name you just pulled out. No, I was trying to remember the name of that Osaka, Naomi Osaka.
Oh yeah,
There you
yeah,
go.
yeah. Yeah,
So
it is Osaka, yeah.
Yeah, it's common sense. I'm not accusing them of anything, but at some point, it's important for human society. Let them all play against a level playing field. And by the way, we're beginning to see, little by little, we're beginning to see it in real life, aren't we? We're beginning to see in athletics where men and women run the relay in the same race.
Is that right?
Sorry?
I didn't know that. Is that correct?
Good Lord, where have you been? Yes. So that is actually very, very exciting. Now it's you're going to need to correct me here because I never figure out how to do this. When 4 people run around, each person in a 4-person team runs around the track once.
Yeah.
Is that a 4x100? Is that a 100
4 by 400?
4 by 400.
Yeah, it's 400 meters circuit, and there's 4 lots of them doing it. Yes.
I don't know why this, because it's so confusing to me, that language 4 by 400. Why? Why isn't 400 by? Okay, if you said 400 by 4, I'd understand that.
Okay, it's
the wrong way around.
400. Yeah.
4 lots of 400.
Yeah.
Eh?
That's right.
Shouldn't that be 4 lots of 4? Oh,
because the whole track, that's whole
400. Yeah, 4 lots
400 meters,
400.
and there's 4 runners all doing one of those laps.
Excellent. I think you've won. I think you've. So yeah, it only took me all these years to figure that out. You actually sorted it out for me. Fine. So yeah, so it's a very, very exciting race because how each team distributes the women and the men can make a difference.
Okay.
So it started, and why not?
So it has started already.
It has started already.
Quite good. But does that mean they have to have? So in other words, this team must consist of equal number of male and female.
Oh yes.
Yes. Okay. Which is good. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, it's a start. And then eventually, over decades, what will happen, I think, is they'll even drop that requirement and just bring your best team. Could be 4 women, could be 4 men.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. See, that works in that scenario. That's quite an interesting way of doing it. But I mean, I'm still unsure about some of the. Okay, let me give an example. You could probably introduce this actually, the gender neutral categories on a lot of areas, but there'd still be some that I'd still be unsure about. I mean, things like judo or I mean, martial arts, actually, you could mix them together, because if they're equally talented, then it doesn't, size and physical strength doesn't really come into it. It's more technique.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I agree. But
judo, and the UFC thing that happened, where the poor girl almost got murdered. Well, not murdered, killed, because he wasn't trying. That's just a one-off. That shouldn't be the touchstone by which we judge everything else. Not that you use touchstones to judge. So that's a mixed metaphor for you right there. But that shouldn't be the standard by which we judge everything else. She got into the ring with someone, got beaten up all over the place.
Yeah, but he was a transsexual. That was the difference, was it not? If it's the story I'm thinking of, it was a female category event only, so it wasn't this mixed we're trying to say, so people go in with their eyes open. This was a female only event where one of the contestants was a transgender female who previously was male.
I thought you taught me that as transgender. Oh yes, transgender female. Yes,
transgender
biological man.
Biological man. Yes. Obviously, the female competitors had never fought a man before, so this was a bit unfair, and so he came in and he almost killed her.
That's not what I'm thinking about, by the way. So that's an interesting one. No, I don't think about an exhibition match. It was a former UFC fighter who had been gobbing off and saying women couldn't fight. Said women can't fight against the reigning champion, some UFC reigning champion. So she challenged him to a fight. It turned out to be a bit of a mistake.
were very one-sided in that instance. If she just, yeah, that's silly. So
He was former fighter. It wasn't like was a former fighter.
Oh, right. So it wasn't. It was. So she was a current fighter, and he was a former fighter,
Yes.
retired.
Yes.
And she challenged him, and it didn't turn out well. Okay. See, that's the sort of thing I'm sort of saying.
No, I'm telling you that we shouldn't then take that as standard. That's just a one-off. That let women face the cauldron from when they're children, and they'll be fine. And we have to do it because women themselves deserve their chance. They deserve it. We're holding them back. They themselves claim that we're holding them back. They blame the patriarchy, and I'm tired of being blamed, by the way. And we men should just say, all right, this is what you want, fair enough. But I don't even think we should even be in a position to be able to tell them, you can't do it. It shouldn't even be our right. It's like, that's what you want, do it. Let's listen to them. For once, as they themselves would say, I'm sure, let's listen to women.
What if they, okay. It all makes sense on paper, it all makes sense logically, but there would have to be a lot of checks and balances. There would have to be a lot of things.
Oh, that's being very protective and very patronizing now. I don't think there should be any such thing.
I'm being protective. This is the father side.
You're just renaming it now to say it's the father side. You're being patronizing. You're patronizing the women. They say that they are not just our equals, but better than us. Now, why are we arguing? Is it that we're protecting our fragile egos? I don't have that kind of an ego. If a woman can beat me up, it's like, okay, she can beat me up. What's the problem? We've got to get to that state of mind now. We can't get in the way of women's ambitions. We shouldn't.
Okay.
So we're letting them off the hook at the same time as we're trying to protect them, in a sense, because that fatherly feeling that you have, that feeling of being protective, I think that is what lets us say and not object to women constantly talking about wanting to be CEOs, but not wanting to go down into the mine pits. And it's only when we're going to be not fair, not just to women, but fair to men. So I think what I'm actually saying is let's be fair to everyone, because that's what the one league is. It's being fair to men and women. Because right now, let's take tennis again. I've been thinking about tennis a lot. Serena Williams, the Williams sisters, and I can't remember who else in that era.
Sharapova.
Yeah, all of them. They fought very, very hard for equal pay with the men, what they called equal pay. Now, me being, driven by logic and that sort of thing, I'm not looking at the emotional thing side of it. I look at it and it's doing my head in, because they only ever play 3 sets. But in the longer formats, men play 5 sets, but they get paid the same.
Like, how is that paid the same? Though?
They do.
I don't think they do.
No, actually they do. The prize money is perfectly equal. There's no difference. Oh, okay. If a man gets $1 million, a woman gets $1 million. That's it.
Okay.
And it did my head in, because instinctively you were like, "Oh, hang on, that's not right. It's not pro rata. It should be pro rata then, shouldn't it?"
Well, but it isn't. You would have thought it should be 5 sets then, especially let's be honest, right? Most tournaments, non-Grand Slams, are only 3 sets, even for men. Okay, it's only the Grand Slam tournaments that are different, where for men it goes up to 5 sets, but for women it currently doesn't. It's still 3.
Yeah, and I'm saying, well, that's very easy. Why don't the men stand up for themselves and say that's not all right? Either pay women 3/5 of what we are earning, because that's what they're playing, or reduce the number of our sets to 3. So all the men had to do was just to say, we're not going to play. If you don't do that, we're just not going to show up and play. And the professional tennis associations wouldn't have had a choice. But the whole idea that women could get away with that, and I think the reason why is that we don't insist on a level playing field for everyone. And we should, and we could, if we just collapsed all those leagues into one single league, then maybe the Grand Slams would stop being 5 sets, or maybe women would just man up and start playing 5 sets. That's all. And that sense of entitlement will disappear. And the sense that men can't speak up, that will disappear. So it will be good for society. It's not just going to be good for women, it's also going to be good for men. There are just so many benefits to doing it that way. I don't understand what's taking us so long to just come around and do the decent thing and just have this level playing field.
Your logic is actually making sense. So,
Thank
I
you.
mean, like I said, I would put this out to our listeners to say what their views are. Do they agree with you? Do they feel that this is something long overdue, that we do need to now get to a level playing field and say, right, okay, everything should be gender neutral. We shouldn't have the different categories. Or in the opinion that I wanted to do was to still have the separate categories, but add this one in for now to see how it works, and then invite those that wanted to join it and see how they fare. And then from there, decide, okay, let's dissolve the existing ones so you only get the one gender neutral category.
Yeah, the problem is I don't think you would get anybody joining the single from the women's point of view. Why would I don't understand how they'd be incentivized to join. What for? Maybe, all right, so you know what? Maybe you could get it if there's a lot more money in it. So if the price for the gendered leagues, the top prize was, they say, $100,000, and then for the mixed league, it was $1 million, then then I suppose women
have
would
to make it a higher incentive because you're now incorporating everybody in it. So yeah, it would have to pay more to be in the gender neutral category because you can play against anyone. So yes, I think that would possibly work, but you'd still keep the existing ones, so you give people that choice.
Well, I think if you did that, then I think people would just kind of poo-poo the existing ones.
Well, then that's the natural progression, which is where we actually want to get to then. We do then want to get to this one gender neutral competition where it doesn't matter what gender you are, you just compete in that particular.
I don't like it. I still don't like it. And I'll tell you why. Because it doesn't address the issue of basically training women to play against men. If you recall, I said that the problem is that women from about puberty upwards are separated and they can go into their own, if you like, silos or leagues, and they're not forced to compete against men. It is only by being forced to compete against men that the peak abilities will begin to manifest.
But wouldn't you think that while discovering this, you're going to get a lot of people who may not like sports to begin with are being forced to compete in mixed sports that they'll hate it even more, and they'll actually there's more possibility of injury? Because I know you're saying that there's a lot of people asking for this equality, but is there? I'd love to see the true representation as to who wants this. Even though it sounds plausible on paper and logically it makes sense to keep things equal, yes, but do the majority actually want this on both genders or all genders?
I would say that one, the name of the movie escapes me now, was Tom Cruise and Cuba Gooding Jr. And the very famous phrase,
oh, show me the money.
Show me the money.
Show me the money.
Show me the money. In other words, like follow the money, okay? If you think that the female tennis players were asking about equality of payment, then that in itself is a statement of equality of ability. Because otherwise, why would you want to be paid the same as someone else? So you don't have to actually come out and boldly state, I think, this and that, I think I'm, equivalent of a man or supreme or superior, whatever. The mere fact that you're saying, I want equal pay with this person means that you were saying you were as good as that person and you deserve to be paid the same because you are as good as that person. And I didn't hear any woman standing up and saying, that's nonsense. You're not as good as the men and you don't deserve the money. All the women were like, yeah, it's good. I think the American female soccer team has just won kind of concession or something. And they now get paid, if not the same as men, substantially more than they were getting paid before. I didn't really follow the argument closely.
I'm not sure about the American side of things, because in America, the female soccer league is actually bigger than the male soccer league. Because in America, male soccer isn't that big a sport. Mm-hmm. But for females, it is. It's quite high up there. Whereas in America, their primary sports are baseball, basketball, and American football. Mm. So soccer, that's how they term it, is down the ranks. It's not really classed that highly. But for women, soccer is up there. So they actually get more, I think my understanding is correct. In America, female soccer attracts a bigger audience than male soccer. Whereas the rest of the world, that doesn't apply.
I don't think that's actually true. I think there's more participation. There's more participation, but that still doesn't equate to more viewership. And of course, viewership is everything when it comes down to television, right? So even if they had packed stadia, which they don't, the thing is, it's not being put on primetime television, which is where the money is. Now, I think that goes for all soccer, but I think it's particularly true of female soccer. Now, I'm quite prepared to do a little bit of fast Googling. Oh, okay.
Are you talking about the USA in particular here?
Yes, the USA. Because it was the USA that just won, was the US women, who it was their national team, I think, not just like all the women. I think it was the national team were saying that they went to, like the World Cup for women, with the equivalent.
Women, yeah.
But they were being paid less than the men who went to the World Cup for men. I think that's the heart of the matter. And I'm saying, because no other women were jumping up and like, that's ridiculous, you're not as good as, or you don't go through the same rigorous things that the male do. If there was just one gender, a single gender competition, everybody just get paid the same. And we wouldn't have to argue about it. It's just so logical. It's just the best way of just dealing with everything. And again, I think I lost my train of thought there. The point I'm trying to make is, by asking for equal pay, you are actually making a statement that you have equal value and equal ability. Because why would I pay you if you are less able than him? Why would I pay you the same as a man if you're less able than the man?
Well, that's not true, is it? Because if you're
no,
let me give you an example.
Yes, please.
For the female athletes and female tennis players, for instance, there's some female tennis players that may not have the ability, but they are sponsorship worthy. So they actually generate more income than a man does, because the sponsorship that they can generate far exceeds what a man's sponsorship can produce. So in other words, it's not anything to do with ability. It's got to do with their marketability. So a female athlete can ask for greater income because she can bring in a larger TV audience based on the fact that she's more popular than a man. And that tends to be quite true in those sorts of sports. So ability doesn't come into it. It comes into the fact that the females are more marketable than the men, and hence why they're paid more, because they attract a bigger viewing.
Well, you could say that. I don't know. I have no figures for that. It's not something I've thought about. I know that Maria Sharapova, from Anna Kournikova.
Anna Kournikova, yes.
Anna Kournikova was the case in point. I mean, she looked like a model. She was really pretty. And I remember that she graced the pages of modeling magazines more often than she did win tournaments, if you like.
Yes.
So she was certainly one of those cases. But then I would argue that she got her money from the modeling thing. the tennis, not necessarily from the tennis thing. I don't think she'd have turned around and say, pay me the same as Borg or whoever was the male.
But I think she did get appearance money, and that was
Oh, of course she did.
substantially higher. Yeah,
Everybody gets.
but appearance money was the fact that what happened was you pay certain players an appearance fee to come to your tournament. So the bigger the personality, the more appearance fee you'd have to pay them, because you know that when they turn up, they're going to bring a certain number of followers that want to see them there. So even though Anna Kournikova didn't necessarily win the tournaments, she brought a certain number of eyes to the tournament, that the interest was there, the media was there, which obviously translates to money. And so her appearance fee to play was generally higher, my understanding was generally higher than others, purely because she brought this fan base along with her.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. My beef is that I have no idea if you are actually correct or not. I don't know. I don't know what the ins and outs of financing, but are you actually able to pay one player more than another player for the same game in the same tournament? Maybe if it's an invitation, you know, when they say
the invitation,
it's an invitational,
they get a
well, I don't think I roll into Wimbledon.
Yeah,
I can't believe you roll into Wimbledon and then person A gets more money than person B.
No, they don't. For winning the tournament, they don't. Of course they don't. That fee is the same for whoever happens to win. But to actually come into the tournament, now obviously certain players will get more appearance fee money based on their ranking, but also their draw. That's why a lot of the big tournaments want the top players there, because they draw bigger crowds, because ultimately that generates them more money. So they want the big players there because the fans will want to see them play and pay more to come to the tournament. But when you've got a tournament which is devoid of key famous people, so to speak, you're going to get less people through the turnstiles paying their money, and less interest from the media in order to show it, which is where the big money income is generated. So you do get appearance fee, which varies depending on the stature of the individual. It's got nothing to do with their gender. It's got to do with how many fans and following they potentially can bring. It's like all the rage at the moment with Emma Raducanu. You know, the young Emma Raducanu.
Oh, okay.
Do you know her? She's the young girl,
British tennis star.
Yeah, went to the US, 18, through the ranks, and flipping won the whole tournament from nowhere. She won it. She's a Grand Slam champion at 18 from nowhere. Okay, out of the blue. She had the potential, but it was very early doors, and she's won it. And they predict, is going to be worth millions, because she's the personality that she brings. She's appealing to all sorts of people, because she's mixed, isn't she? She was born in the UK from I think a Romanian father and a Chinese mother, but born in the UK. So she's representing Great Britain, but she can also speak Romanian and can also speak Mandarin. So she appeals to the Chinese market and part of the Eastern European market, as well as the British. So she's appealing in that respect. She's 18, 19 now, can speak eloquently. She's attractive. She's going to make millions because she's going to draw people, and she's personable. That when they interview her, after the tournament, she's really lovely to chat. She's very smiley. She's just a lovely person. And so all this brings up the fact that she will now be invited to come to tournaments, because people will want to see her play, even though she's won one tournament. Subsequently, she hasn't done so well in Europe, but people still want to go and see her play because of her draw. Now, I'm mindful of the time here. We're getting very at the end of the show. Do you have any final words on this subject in particular?
I think I said it all. I think we should simply be less actually, but less patronizing, more equity minded, equality minded, and not just give women a chance, but insist on women taking that opportunity.
So you believe that all sports now should be competed as gender neutral?
Absolutely, 100%.
Okay. Thank you for that. Unfortunately, we have now reached the end of the show for another week. If you enjoy listening to our show, why not mention our show to any colleagues, friends, and family who you think would like it too? And you, the listeners, can always send in any comments and feedback about what we are discussing on our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/the TNT Talk Show. If you leave any comments or questions on the Facebook page, Teo and I will do our very best to try and answer those questions on a subsequent show or even live on air. Remember, you can also listen to our show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Alexa, and all other good audio platforms. If you simply want to search for past episodes of the show, just go to Google and search for the TNT Talk Show and you will find them. Finally, Tayo and I thank you again for tuning in, and we'll catch you all again next time.